200 years ago, on October 23, 1819, the pioneer company of American Protestant missionaries departed aboard the Thaddeus from the Long Wharf in Boston. On board were Hiram and Sybil Bingham, Asa and Lucy Thurston, Samuel and Mary Ruggles, Samuel and Mercy Whitney, Elijah and Maria Loomis, Thomas and Lucia Holman, Daniel and Jerusha Chamberlain and their 5 children, Dexter, Nathan, Mary, Daniel Jr., and Nancy, and 4 Hawaiians, Hopu, Kanui, Honoli'i, and Humehume. On their 160th day out of Boston, March 30th, 1820, they reached the islands. Then they sailed for Kailua Kona, where Liholiho, the new king, was living. Samuel Whitney notes in his journal on April 4th, "We have now anchored for the first time since we embarked. Brothers Bingham and Thurston went on shore and conversed with the king on the subject of our introducing the gospel. He appeared pleased, but his power is so limited, he could give us no decisive answer about landing." Then on April 11th, the Thaddeus Journal notes, "The decision of the government is that 2 of the brethren with their wives and 2 of the native youths should remain here and be furnished at the public expense with lodgings, water and fuel, and with fresh provisions, and allowed to commence their work with a promise of protection, and that the rest of our number would be allowed to proceed to Oahu, and there be accommodated with convenient houses. The missionaries were told that if they did not do them good, they might send them all away." April 12th was a busy, trying, joyful, and important day. As the brig lay about a mile from the shore, the boats were employed all day in transporting their goods, etc., to the beach, and several of the king's men, with one of the brethren, removed them from the beach to the house. Mercy Whitney noted in her journal on April 12, 1820, "This morning for the first time I set foot on the ground. After a voyage of 5 months and a half, you need not wonder if I tell you I found it difficult to walk much on land without being fatigued." On April 12, Samuel Ruggles notes, "We shall sail for Oahu about 10 o'clock tonight." This image notes that on April 14th, they arrived in Honolulu and anchored offshore. Coral doesn't grow in fresh water, so where a stream enters a coastal area, there is typically no coral growth at that point. And as the fresh water runs out into the ocean, a coral-less channel is created. In its natural state, thanks to Nu'uanu Stream, Honolulu Harbor originally was a deep embayment formed by the outflow of Nu'uanu Stream, creating an opening in the shallow coral reef along the south shore of Oahu. Honolulu, it was known earlier as Kuloloia, was entered by the first foreigner, Captain William Brown, on the English ship Butterworth in 1794. They called the harbor Fairhaven, which may be a rough translation of the Hawaiian name Honolulu. It was also sometimes called Brown's Harbor. The name Honolulu, meaning sheltered bay, with numerous variations in spelling, soon came into use. There are certain things you should not or cannot do into the wind. Trade winds blow from the northeast. The channel into Honolulu Harbor has a northeasterly alignment. Early ships calling to Honolulu were powered only by sails. The entrance to the harbor was narrow and lined on either side with reefs. Ships don't sail into the wind. Given all of this, Honolulu Harbor was difficult to enter. Boats either anchored offshore or they were pulled into the harbor. This was done with canoes, or it meant men and or oxen pulled them in. It might take 8 double canoes with 16 to 20 men each working in a pre-dawn calm when the winds and currents are slow. As Honolulu developed and grew, lots of changes happened, including along its waterfront. What is now known as Queen Street was actually the water's edge. The Thaddeus Journal notes on April 17, 1820, that the missionaries obtained permission to enter the harbor. Boki, the governor, came on board. He is a young chief and apparently mild and easy in his disposition, less sprightly than some of his countrymen, and distinguished for his moderation, says but little, and appears by no means unfriendly to us or our object, but somewhat indifferent to the message from Hawaii. But as the people are naturally and habitually slow in their movements, we hope that he may bestir himself with more efficiency to promote our design. They entered the harbor in safety and anchored within a few yards of the shore. On April 19, 1820, having at length succeeded in making the necessary arrangements, casting ourselves again on the oars of divine providence, and putting ourselves in the power and possession of strangers, on this interesting day, we disembarked from the board that had borne us in safety across the mighty waters, from our dear native land, and here took up our abode, which will be the scene of our labors and sufferings, and probably the resting place of our bones, when our toils are over and our pilgrimage is ended.